total of 62 places have been renamed by China as part of its cultural imperialism that it seeks to impose on Arunachal Pradesh. The Chinese aggressive moves against India, Taiwan and in South China Sea are designed to project President Xi Jinping as a great unifier. The real reason behind the latest round of renaming of places in Arunachal Pradesh by China is to really finger the Narendra Modi government and instigate the opposition on the eve of the 2024 general elections. Before Narendra Modi was sworn in as the Prime Minister in May 2014, the upgradation of roads and military infrastructure in Arunachal Pradesh existed on paper and purely in plans. The Chinese spokesperson actually should do some research before they swear in the name of Arunachal Pradesh, as the position of Chinese Communist Party vis-a-vis Arunachal Pradesh has changed over the past decades. The Modi government decided to give it back to them when the Chinese army transgressed into the Chumar area on September 17, 2014, while President Xi Jinping was hosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Ahmedabad. The Chinese aggravation will not go unanswered, as India has also the option of revisiting the strong influence of the Indian civilization in Tibet. President Xi Jinping should realize that he is not dealing with India of 1962 and that Narendra Modi is not Jawaharlal Nehru. After Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 12-kilometer long tunnel under 13,700 feet high Sela on March 9th from Itanagar, the Xi Jinping regime has literally gone berserk. First, they publicly protested against Prime Minister Modi's visit to Arunachal Pradesh, stating that the state belonged to them, and then on March 30th decided to give Mandarin names to 30 places in Arunachal Pradesh. The Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar called the first move ludicrous, and the MEA spokesperson called the second move as senseless. This is the fourth list of names of places in Arunachal Pradesh released by the Xi Jinping regime since 2017, a move that was triggered by the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Tawang on April 2017. A total of 62 places have been renamed by China as part of its cultural imperialism that it seeks to impose on Arunachal Pradesh, while Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has dismissed the exercise.
मैं आपके घर का नाम बदल दूं तो मेरा घर बन जाएगा क्या? अरुणाचल प्रदेश भारत का स्टेट है, पहले भी था, अभी भी है, आगे भी रहेगा, तो ये नाम बदलने से कुछ नहीं होता.
The Chinese aggressive moves against India, Taiwan and in South China Sea are designed to project President Xi Jinping as a great unifier before his domestic audience. Just as Mao Zedong gave China respect, Deng Xiaoping economic empowerment, Xi Jinping wants to go down in the history as the man who unified China with dreams of militarily conquering Taiwan, lording over South China Sea and occupying Tawang, the birthplace of the sixth Dalai Lama. This may be a sound mind game in theory, but it is delusional in reality. The real reason behind the latest round of renaming of places in Arunachal Pradesh by China is to really finger the Narendra Modi government and instigate the opposition on the eve of the 2024 general elections in India. It is also a reaction to the Modi government taking decisive steps in integrating the border state of Arunachal Pradesh with the mainland through better air and land connectivity and military upgradation of infrastructure from Tawang in the west to Kibuthu in the east, in the eastern sector. The new international airport at Itanagar will lead to economic development of the state through tourist arrivals from all over the country. Arunachal has a great tourist potential. Arunachal is a place which is extremely beautiful with alpine climate, and hence everybody in India who earlier used to go to Himachal Pradesh and Srinagar will now be looking towards Arunachal Pradesh as well as Sikkim and Darjeeling. Before Narendra Modi was sworn in as the Prime Minister in May 2014, the upgradation of roads and military infrastructure in Arunachal Pradesh existed on paper and purely in plans. The then UPA Defence Minister A.K. Antony is on record in the Parliament stating that his government was not keen on developing border infrastructure all along the 3,488 kilometer line of actual control, as they feared that the PLA would use the roads to come into Indian hinterland. Let me tell you, way back in 2004, when the UPA government came into power, a meeting of the Chinese study group, a key group that takes empowered decisions vis-a-vis China, took place in the Foreign Ministry. At that time, the then Vice Chief of Indian Army, who had come into the meeting in place of the Army Chief, said that he did not want the roads to be built as the Chinese would come into the Indian territory using the same roads. At that particular point of time, the then Home Secretary, who later on became the Delhi Lieutenant Governor, Anil Baijal, he said then the best thing is not to make roads in Delhi because tomorrow the Chinese may come into Delhi. So what has happened is that the Indian Army is still to get over this 1962 hangover, and it has over the years, along with the government in power, made efforts to pacify the Chinese dragon lest it breathe fire. The renaming of places in Arunachal Pradesh by China is part of the Middle Kingdom mindset of Xi Jinping regime. The Middle Kingdom, or Zhonghao as it is called in China, in Mandarin, is a concept where China is at the center of the world and all other are tributary states. This has given rise to Chinese military and cultural expansion in the present decade, with routine violations of Taiwan air corridors, coercion of Philippines, Indonesia through aggressive PLA Navy, and efforts to block Indian patrols along the Ladakh LAC in Demchok as well as in Depsang Plains. The Chinese spokesperson actually should do some research before they swear in the name of Arunachal Pradesh, as the position of Chinese Communist Party vis-a-vis Arunachal Pradesh has changed over the past decades. In 1960, the then Chinese Prime Minister Chow En-lai told his Indian counterpart Jawaharlal Nehru that China would give up its claim on the eastern sector of India if New Delhi accepted the 1959 line on the western sector that passes through Konkan La. The same position was reiterated by Deng Xiaoping in 1984. But it is in 1987, during a Vice Minister dialogue, it was communicated that China will stake claim on both the sectors, and hence the problem has arisen. While the PLA continued military nibbling at the LAC in both the sectors pre-2014, the Modi government decided to give it back to them when the Chinese army transgressed into the Chumar area on September 17, 2014, while President Xi Jinping was hosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Ahmedabad. Fact is, Prime Minister Modi told President Xi Jinping bluntly that either he tells the PLA to withdraw from Chumar or he will assume that the transgression has the approval of the Chinese president. That Arunachal Pradesh was totally off the special representative dialogue on boundary resolution was made it clear by the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to his current counterpart Wang Yi. When Wang Yi decided to mention the word Tawang during the SR dialogue, NSA Doval told him that the dialogue needs to be immediately stopped, and henceforth there should not be any dialogue, as Tawang is not on the agenda under any circumstance. The NSA made it clear that just because his grandfather used to go for pilgrimage to Mount Kailash and Mansarovar Lake, in Tibet without a passport should India lay territorial claims to Tibet. So what will India do after the fresh round of renaming? The Narendra Modi government currently is in election mode and hence the matter currently stands dismissed as senseless. However, the Chinese aggravation will not go unanswered as India has also the option of revisiting the strong influence of the Indian civilization in Tibet and the Sanskritized names of places and the foundation of Sanskrit sutras in Tibetan Buddhism like Om Mani Padme Hum. It will further integrate the Arunachalis into mainstream to the first village in Kibuthu with advanced military capabilities and capacities along the eastern sector for faster deployment of troops, mountain guns and BrahMos missiles. President Xi Jinping should realize that he is not dealing with India of 1962 and that Narendra Modi is not Jawaharlal Nehru, who went on to attend the non-aligned summit in Ceylon in the midst of the 1962 war. The fundamental issue that India needs to understand is that China only understands the language of power. It understood when Colonel Santosh Babu took on the Chinese PLA at Galwan on June 15, 2020. It understood when the Indian Army, including the special forces of Tibetan expats, occupied the southern banks of Pogongso right up to Rizangla, Rechinla. Had it not been for that, the Chinese would have never vacated positions on Pogongso. And for that, we have to thank General Bipin Rawat. While India will play down the issue till the general elections take place, there is a number of things that India should be doing in future vis-a-vis China if it needs to understand what the Chinese regime is up to. India definitely needs to upgrade its intelligence capabilities, its information warfare, as it needs to know what is the main reason China sporadically provokes India. It needs to have advanced information as to what the Chinese government is planning to do all along the 3,488 kilometer long LAC. As of now, the Indian intelligence and the Indian military capacities have a huge gap to fill if the questions need to be answered and answered well in advance. The future with China remains adversarial and will continue to be so, given the military ambitions of President Xi Jinping and its desire to become numero uno in the world. India needs to be prepared to meet China, and for that, it needs advanced information. Namaskar.